Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some exciting changes coming in Honkai Star Rail's 3.2 update, specifically the updates for Castorice and Anaxa. Now, there's a lot of buzz going around the internet about these changes, and while we won't know for sure until they hit the official game, we can still break down what's been leaked and what it could mean for your teams. These changes might be some of the biggest shifts we see, so buckle up as we dive in. Hey guys, before we continue further, if you're planning to pull for your favorite waifu, husbando, or maybe any of the rear-end units in this version, listen up because I've been using LootBar, and it lets you save up to 23% on all your purchases. Just to show you how good this deal is, I bought a 6480 Oneiric shard pack for only $79, while the same pack costs about $100 in the in-game shop. Topping up is super simple. All you need to do is enter your UID, select your server, and in just a few minutes, you'll receive your jades. And yes, if it's your first purchase, you'll still get the double top-up bonus, just like in-game. What's even better is that LootBar isn't just for Honkai Star Rail. You can also top up in Genshin Impact with the same discounts. With thousands of 5-star reviews, it's a safe, reliable, and cheaper way to get more value for your money. And here's the best part. If you use my link in the description or the pinned comment, you'll get an extra 8% off on top of all the other discounts. So, if you're looking to pull more for less, check out LootBar now. Let's start with Castorice. There's a lot to unpack here, but the good news is that Castorice is getting some much-needed sustainability buffs. If you've played with her in the past, you know that her main problem was that she drained a lot of HP for her abilities, and if you didn't have the right sustained characters, like Luo Cha, it could be pretty tricky to manage. Well, that might not be a huge problem anymore. First things first, her global passive remains unchanged. If you were hoping for a rework there, sorry to disappoint, but it's still at her kit. It's one of those things that might be a staple of her design, so it's probably here to stay for the foreseeable future. But don't let that get you down, because the rest of her kit is where the changes are happening. Her summon ability, which is tied to her ultimate, has seen some positive tweaks. Previously, the summon speed was a little lackluster, meaning it didn't get to act quickly enough during battle. But now, it's been buffed with a speed increase. That's a game changer for anyone who struggled with how slowly the summon moved before. This means it can now act quicker in battle, which is huge for optimizing your strategies. However, while speed is up, damage is down a bit. Her multipliers have been reduced, meaning that overall damage output has taken a hit. It's not a dramatic drop, but it's noticeable. The summon's attack mechanics have also been adjusted. Previously, the more times you attacked with the summon, the higher the damage would get until it hit a maximum of 3 stacks. Now, it only goes up to 2 stacks. This means a slight reduction in damage scaling with each attack, but the maximum damage value remains the same. What's interesting, though, is the changes to her summon's disappearing effect. Before, when the summon performed its big attack, it would disappear, and that was the end of it. Now, however, the summon will still disappear after attacking, but it now heals your team. Instead of just doing damage, Castorice's summon can now restore HP to allies when it disappears. This is a big shift towards sustainability, a nice move for players who don't have top-tier healing characters like Luo Cha or Anaxa. For players who are used to draining their HP to fuel Castorice's abilities, this change helps make her a lot more manageable in longer battles. On top of that, her traces have seen some adjustments too. One of her previous traces, which boosted the speed of both Castorice and her summon when their HP was high, has been swapped for a new trace. The new trace boosts Castorice's own speed instead of the summon's. Additionally, a trace that allowed healing to be converted into bonus damage for the summon has been slightly buffed. Now, more HP can be converted into damage for the summon, adding more damage potential when you're working with sustain. One of the biggest new additions is that her summon now deals more damage based on how low the enemy's HP is. If the enemy has less health, the summon's damage will scale up accordingly. But there is a maximum threshold to this, so it won't infinitely scale. There's a cap. This change adds an interesting dynamic to her abilities, giving her a boost in damage against weakened enemies and making her even more effective in taking down low-health targets. Now, let's talk about Anaxa. Honestly, the changes to Anaxa are a bit underwhelming, especially compared to Castorice. While there are some buffs, they feel more like small adjustments rather than major overhauls. To start, Anaxa's base attack has been nerfed slightly. This is a bit of a letdown since Anaxa already had a relatively low base attack, and reducing it further makes him less effective at dealing raw damage. On the plus side, his base speed has been increased, which is a good change. He was always a bit too slow for a character who relies on speed, and this will at least help him perform a little better. However, even with this buff, I still think his speed could use some more love. He's still a bit on the slower side, especially for a character who benefits from getting his actions off quickly. One of the most significant changes to Anaxa is a nerf to his talent's bonus damage. His talent used to increase his damage significantly when enemies were under the effect of his debuff. Now, that bonus damage has been reduced, which means Anaxa will deal less damage when enemies are affected by his debuff. This is a pretty big hit to his damage potential and might make him feel less impactful in situations where his debuff was key to maximizing his output. However, there is a silver lining. Anaxa's AoE damage has been improved. His skill now deals more damage the more enemies are present on the field. The more enemies there are, the more damage he does, which gives him great scaling in multi-enemy fights. This makes him more versatile in larger battles, which is great if you like using him in areas with more enemies. Now, as for Anaxa's Eidolon changes, there are some notable adjustments. One of his Eidolons that used to increase his ultimate damage and speed has been reworked entirely. The new effect now triggers Anaxa's talent debuff when enemies enter the battle and reduces their all-elemental resistance, essentially shifting him from an offensive powerhouse to a more debuff-focused role. This could be useful in specific team comps, but it's not quite the damage-focused change many were hoping for. Another Eidolon that gave him a stackable attack boost after using skills has been nerfed, meaning he'll get less attack from it, and the number of stacks has been reduced. This is a pretty disappointing change, as it makes him less effective in sustained combat. However, one of his Eidolons that increased his damage based on his original attack value has been slightly buffed, which is nice, but overall, the changes to Anaxa feel like they were aimed at improving his debuffing capabilities rather than his raw damage output. So, what does this all mean for you? Castorice is definitely getting a buff overall. While her damage output is a bit lower, her sustainability is much better, and her summon is a lot quicker and more useful. The new healing mechanics make her easier to manage, especially if you don't have premium sustain characters. This makes her a more friendly and versatile character, and I definitely consider her a win in terms of changes. Anaxa, on the other hand, feels like he got a few small buffs but also some disappointing nerfs. His debuff game is stronger now, but his damage potential seems a bit diminished. If you were hoping for a major upgrade to his kit, you might feel a bit let down. That being said, he'll still perform decently, especially in multi-enemy scenarios, but it's not the overhaul many were hoping for. Final thoughts. Castorice is a solid win with these changes, making her more accessible and easier to manage in fights, while Anaxa's changes are more of a mixed bag, some good, but not game-changing. What do you think? Are you excited about the new changes to Castorice? Or are you feeling disappointed with Anaxa's updates? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, remember that all of this info is just circulating online right now. When the update officially drops, we'll get the full picture. But until then, stay tuned for more updates, and I'll catch you next time.